The next step in executing a solid plan is to actually recruit the influencers. So once they've been validated and you have an idea of the value to you and your payment structure, the next thing you'll want to do is recruit them, get them on board to your campaign. It's important to think about how you're going to approach them and have a clear value proposition in mind. There are typically two models when we think about recruiting and discussing with influencers. The first is direct contact. So are you going to contact and build the relationships with the influencers yourself, or are you hiring an agency to execute your campaign and they will be contacting the influencers for you? Either way, it's really important that whether you're contacting influencers or your agency is contacting influencers, that your brand is represented well. One of the things that we often see in the social media space is influencers sharing terrible pitches that they get from brands, where either maybe the brand is asking them to work for free or the pitch is just insulting and not customized. So whether it's an agency or you're doing it internally, the key when recruiting influencers is to make sure that you have a well thought out plan and you're approaching them respectfully and recognizing that their audience is worth money to them and many of them view it as a business. One of the things you'll find with more seasoned influencers is that they view it as a business. So many of them will have a page on their blog or website or even contact information on Instagram about how they work with brands. And it can include payments and what their expectations are, or just a way for you to get started speaking to them. Influencers that have an approach to run their influencer program like a business will typically have a page like this, which is a great way to get started. Regardless of which route you choose, whether you're using an agency or doing it yourself, it's important to follow some best practices when recruiting influencers to maximize their probability of wanting to work with you. Remember, you're selling them on the opportunity to work with you. And so it's always important to keep in mind that you want to highlight the benefits to them as well as the expectations for you to maximize their probability of being interested. I think of it a little bit as a job interview. When I go to a job interview as a candidate, primarily I'm selling myself, but the company also needs to sell themselves to me. Even though they may be offering a good salary, I want to know they're going to respect me, it's a good place to work, etc. So keep this in mind with your influencers as well. It really is a two-way street, even if you are compensating them financially. So one of the things that can be helpful is to meet your influencers first or participate in influencer events, especially if this is a core part of your strategy. For example, many years ago, when I got started in digital marketing and influencer marketing, I attended a blogging conference called Blog Her. And at the time, lots of brands wanted to work with bloggers as influencers to help get their message out there. What smart brands did was they sent teams to some of these blogging conferences so that the teams could meet the bloggers and establish relationships with them and do a little bit of vetting. And then they would use that to invite them into their influencer campaigns. So it can be helpful to actually meet them or participate in their communities if you really are serious about using influencer marketing as a longer term strategy. If you're looking at a more transactional or short-term approach, though, this certainly is not necessary. The next thing is to be clear and direct about what it is you're asking and what it is you're offering. So get to the point. A lot of influencers get pitched by a lot of brands, so they want to understand exactly what it is you're offering, what your brand is, and a lot of them will want to understand the integrity of your brand as well. They approach this as a business, and so they're essentially becoming a spokesperson for your business. So if your business has shady business practices or negative Google reviews, that can certainly have a negative impact on how influencers view working with you and your business. It's really important that you customize your email when you're reaching out to them and that you don't have incorrect information or that you're reaching out to influencers who are not a good fit. So what you'll want to do is make sure that even though you can use software, for example, to find influencers, take a look at their accounts, look at what they're posting, and send a customized email. Explain to them why you think they're a good fit, how your content matches with what they're already doing, and customize your requests to them. This is a good way to make sure that your email is well received versus viewed as spam or a form letter and could end up in the junk mailbox. The last thing, which maybe should go without saying at this point, is make sure you're offering value to your influencers. And it's not always, value doesn't always have to be money, but normally it is. But, with some big brands, value can sometimes just be the ability to work with the brand or for the brand to send you to an exclusive event, for example. In some instances, especially with high value products, free product is an okay exchange. It's helpful to understand what influencers expect based on the type of influencers you're recruiting. Most influencers, though, will not work for free. So you'll need to come up with a clear value exchange so that they know what they're getting out of it if they choose to use their audience to promote your product or service. I recently was on a social media discussion forum, and a social media manager was hired by a medium-sized business, and one of her tasks was an influencer marketing campaign. And they gave her a list that they had pre-created of 100 different influencers, and they wanted her to reach out to them and recruit them to do a blog post about their business. When she said, well, what are we offering in return for the blog post? The business said, well, I think they should do it for free, or we can give them free product. The free product was a $20 product. And what was interesting was in this discussion forum, the person said, I'm super embarrassed to send this email, so I'm not even going to send it for myself. But what she said was when she finally sent it, so she was saying, I'm really embarrassed, but am I missing something or is this common? And everybody said, no, this is not common. And what was really unfortunate was after she sent the email to these 100 people, I think 50% of them responded, and it was 100% negative responses saying, this is insulting. I don't work for free. Maybe you should do some more research on how to work with influencers. So as you think of your value proposition, I'm not telling you this story to scare you off, but because you need to be cautious that you're not insulting your influencers by either offering them free products that's very low value or nothing at all. Because the worst case scenario is that you reach out to influencers and you start creating a negative exchange with them, or they share this negative exchange on social media, which does happen with some regularity. So make sure that your value offer is clear and probably in line with their expectations so that you're maximizing the probability that you will get a positive response. It can also be helpful to ask others in the industry what they're typically getting, or find a few influencers before you create your formal pitch. You can always find a few influencers and reach out to them and say, hey, here's what we would like to do. I'd love to understand what your typical rate structure would be for something like this. And of course, somebody's initial structure is the jumping off point to negotiations usually, but that gives you an idea at least of what their starting point is. And if you ask 2 or 3 people and find price similarities, then you at least know the expectations if you want to move forward and work with other similar influencers. Keep in mind that recruiting influencers is part art, part science. You need to attract them to be interested in partnering with you to promote your business with an offer that is compelling and valuable to them. This is a two-way street, so selling them on your business is just as important as offering them financial compensation.